Welcome. In today's video, we're going to be looking at how I overcome a creative block as an entrepreneur. So if you're struggling with creative blocking and not being able to come up with the ideas that you need to come up with, then stay tuned to this video. I'm going to go through 5 tips that I've used and then a bonus tip at the very end of the video that really does change everything for me. So if you like this sort of content, make sure you are subscribed with those notifications turned on, and let's get into the video straight away. Welcome if you're new here, welcome back if you're not. My name is Jonny Bradley. I'm founder of the Seller Pro Academy, where we help ordinary people create extraordinary things just one product at a time. Now, one of the things that I have to deal with quite often is coming up with strategies for like marketing or for my business or even for my personal life. And I find it very, very hard sometimes to come up with the ideas or to think creatively because I'm having a mental block. And I'm sure if you're watching this, you probably sometimes have this issue as well. And this is a super important topic. I actually put a little post on my Instagram asking for what other people do when they have a creative block. I got some fantastic ideas and some of them actually made their way into this video. Now, before we go into the tips, the first thing you have to understand is that a lot of these ideas and a lot of your creative thinking is coming from your subconscious mind. So you're not actually aware of anything going wrong. What you can do though is train your subconscious mind to be able to give these ideas to you. I like to think of this like looking up into the night sky at night. And when you look up, you see all the stars in the night sky, and think of those stars as thoughts, each individual one being a thought that's in your subconscious. And when you're looking up at them and they're all just thoughts, nothing really stands out to you. But as soon as you form constellations and patterns within them, then you're able to identify those stars in the night sky, saying, oh, that's Orion's belt, that's the Big Dipper, because there's constellations. So think of those constellations like ideas. And what we want to do is train our brain, or just be aware of how our brain works, so that we have all these thoughts in our mind, all these stars in the night sky, and we want our brain to form these constellations, these links, and present them to us in the form of an idea. So tip number 1 is simply getting enough sleep. Later in the video, we're going to be going through actual techniques, but none of those techniques really work unless you have some fundamental things right with your day. And one of those things is getting enough sleep. You know, a lot happens when you're asleep. It gives our mind time to actually organize what's happened in the previous day. And there's so much happening in our day and so much stimulus going on that our brain needs to work out what's important and what's not important. Me personally, I don't get a tremendous amount of sleep, but I get enough so that I know that my brain is working efficiently. If someone tells you you need to sleep 8 hours a day, or you need to sleep 6 or 5 or 4 hours a day, whatever it may be, it's kind of not true, because everyone needs the sleep that they need. If you're someone that needs 8, 9 or 10 hours sleep to be able to function properly, then maybe that's just what you need and that's your body and how it works. If you're someone that can survive on 4 or 5 hours sleep, then that's perfect. But understanding how much sleep you need to be able to perform highly is super important to be able to be productive and to actually come up with good ideas and get through that creative block. There's tons of resources out there to get better sleep, but it really just comes down to simply getting to bed on time. If you get to bed on time, you're far more likely to wake up when you want to wake up. If you start watching Netflix and you keep watching another one and another one and another one, and before long it's 2 hours after you wanted to sleep, then you're going to have 2 hours less sleep. Those 2 hours that you're missing out on are really vital to your development and vital to your creative thinking. So if you're working on a big project or your business or whatever it may be, something to do with work, then just make sure you're getting enough sleep. So that's tip number 1. I think it's a pretty obvious one. So let's skip on to the next one. The second one is exercise. Again, pretty obvious. Everyone says, oh, you know, you need to exercise. It gives you more energy and stuff like that. Personally, in my life, it makes a huge difference, an absolutely ginormous difference on how my day goes. For me personally, I work from home, so if I don't get up and I don't go to the gym, or I don't work out or have some sort of exercise, I'll pretty much kind of linger around in bed, you know, have some food, have a coffee, and eventually get to work. But I'll still be in that sleeping, bed, relaxing mentality for quite a few hours after I should have got up. I appreciate not everyone can work out in the morning, but studies have shown that after you work out for about 30 minutes, your productivity or your creative thinking is actually extends for about 2 hours after that. Once I started researching this video, I found all these alignments between what I was doing and what the data and the research said. And the exact same thing happened. I have my best productivity moments, I have my best thoughts, my best creative thinking in the morning after I've worked out. If I don't, my day is drastically affected, my productivity goes way down, and I just feel lethargic and that I really can't be bothered. I appreciate not everyone can go to the gym very, very early, but at least maybe get up half an hour early and just do some sort of workout, even if you're just doing some squats or you're doing some press ups in your bedroom, in your living room. Just do something to raise your heart rate, to get that endorphin release, and it will have massive effects on the beginning of your day. And if you have a good start to the day, it's often that productivity and that focus will actually move on throughout the day, and then you can quit working at a reasonable time and achieved exactly what you want to achieve. And of course, there's tons of other health benefits to exercising anyway, but if you're like me and you need to be able to think critically and you need to be able to come up with ideas and strategize pretty much all the time, then make sure you get exercising in the morning. Tip number 3 is something that I've crafted over the past couple of years, reading books about productivity, reading books about focus, and just understanding how I work. This may not work for you, but for me, it's about quantity over quality. Now, I know most of the time people say, you want quality over quantity, but with coming up with ideas, honestly, it's about quantity of ideas, not the quality of the ideas. And the way I do this is I normally use a notepad or a notes document. And if I'm trying to come up with an idea or a strategy or trying to work through a problem, I'll write down as many things as I can, as many ideas as humanly possible. I'll spend about 20 minutes or half an hour working on it, and then I'll take a break from it and come back to it maybe after lunch or whatever it may be, or another day. But what you're doing is you're coming up with tons of ideas, most of which of course will be nonsense and you'll never use them, but it's getting your brain to start working and working on the problem. Your brain is fantastic at working through problems in your subconscious, but the first thing you need to do is tell your subconscious that you're trying to work on a problem. If you're not repeating the task and you're not brainstorming, then you're not telling your subconscious brain that this is important. As soon as your subconscious is aware that this is something that's important, it's going to work in the background on your behalf. And I'm sure we've all had that moment where you've been trying to work something out and then you're doing the dishes, the next day, and you suddenly get the idea. It's not that you just suddenly had this eureka moment. You already had the idea in your subconscious. It was just forming those constellations in the stars in the night sky of your ideas and your thoughts, and then presenting them into your conscious mind to go, okay, here's the answer that you were looking for. That happens far more if you train your brain through coming up with the quantity of ideas first. This is how I approach nearly all of the creative things that I do when I'm thinking about launching products, when I'm thinking about business strategies, marketing strategies, brand names, logos, anything where you have to come up with an idea. I do this every single time, and most of the time I don't get the idea on the first time. If I get a notes document and I write down loads of ideas, you don't normally get the idea first time. But you come back to it again and again, and it's just like practice making perfect. Eventually, you will come up with an idea and you'll find another way to look at the same problem. You'll find something from the stimulus around you that gives you the idea about the problem you've been working on. And I'm sure this has happened to you many, many, many times, but there is a very important reason why it happens, and that's because you're training your brain to work on the problem. So if you're working on something right now and you're getting stuck, get a piece of paper, get something to write down on a notes document. Doesn't have to be physical, it can be digital, and just start coming up with ideas, understanding that 95% of them will be utter rubbish. But importantly, 5% of those ideas might be pretty good, and maybe 1% of them will be really, very good. But you weren't able to get to that 5% without doing the 95% of basically the nonsense work previously. Number 4 is taking breaks. That's right, your brain cannot work 24/7. It needs breaks. So obviously, just like a muscle, when you overwork it, it gets fatigued. Your brain does exactly the same thing. A lot of studies show that around 2 hours is about the most you can really focus on something before getting that fatigue. Now, what happens with me, and it probably happens with you, is once you set your mind on a task, you really dive into it and you might spend a few hours working on it. But the problem is that the real productive time is probably at the beginning. After a couple of hours, your thoughts won't have as much clarity and you'll really struggle to get to the end goal. This is especially common in a couple of areas. One, when it's your job and you're kind of forced to work. And second is when you have a task or a project that you're really engaged in and you want to get it done because you actually find it interesting. Towards the start of this year, I had a massive project that took literally hundreds of hours to complete. So I needed to make sure I got as much time and creative and productive time in a day as possible. Now, you could do it from 9 till 5, but that just wouldn't work because after a couple of hours, I would lose focus and the quality of the work would diminish. What I did was create a really strict schedule to stick to that allowed times for breaks. Now, I did a video on this about productivity, so I'm going to put a little card to that. It'll probably be in that corner or or one of the corners. Check that out if you want to understand the full scope of what I did. But in essence, it was a case of planning out the day. So from 9 a.m. until 9:50 p.m., I'll be doing a block of work and then have a 10-minute break. But when I implemented this, I wasn't able to stick to the breaks, and I would often work longer, getting the fatigue and then not being able to be productive and not being able to be critical anymore. There was one thing that I changed, and that thing is setting reminders or alarms on your phone before you need to take a break. Often is the case when you're ingrained in a task, when you go to take a break, you kind of think, oh, let me just finish up this one thought or this one page or paragraph or whatever you're doing. And you then forget to take the break. Before long, you've done another hour's work and then you've hit your fatigue levels. So instead, what I'd recommend doing is if you need to take a break, let's say at 10 o'clock, set an alarm on your phone 10 minutes before, so at 9:50, to say, take a break in 10 minutes. Have another alarm at 10 o'clock saying, take a break. What happens is it gets to 9:50, the alarm will go off or the reminder will go off, and it will remind you to take a break. You can then start to wind down that activity that you're doing, knowing that you're going to be taking a break in 10 minutes, giving you time to finish up any last thoughts or sentences, etc. And then when the second alarm goes off, you can take a break, you can walk away from your work, go and do something different, have a break, whatever you need to do, and then come back to it at a later time. As soon as I implemented this, I was able to massively increase what I was able to do, not only because I was strategizing the day on how to get things done properly and how to get them done in the most efficient way, it was because I wasn't getting to that fatigue level or taking enough breaks to be able to go back to the task or even to a different task and approach it with the same sort of creativity and focus every single time throughout the day. Using this method, I was able to get a ton of work done, more than I've ever done in my life, if I'm honest. And it was all because I was setting reminders to take breaks. The fifth tip is simply move on to something else. If you're reaching a block, if you are writing something, if you're creating music, if you're working on a project or anything that you really need to put a lot of attention into, just take a really long break. Be that the whole day, a couple of days. Give your brain time to switch off and relax and work in the background, so when you come back to the task, you have a fresh mind and a fresh outlook. For me, this was really important when I was in university. I did a music technology degree, and a lot of the time I was making music. Now, if you've ever made music or done art or anything like that that's quite creative, then you can kind of go like blind to the work that you've been doing. So I would be working on maybe a composition or a song and really working it quite hard. But then I'd get to that point where I didn't really know what I was doing, if I was making it better, making it worse. And what I needed to do was step away from it for at least a couple of days and then come back to the project 2 days later and listen to it with fresh ears. Quite often you need to look at your ideas from a fresh perspective, and the only way to really do that is give yourself time not thinking about that particular project. So if you're really struggling with a creative block, go outside, go for a walk, walk the dog, go have dinner somewhere, switch off for a day, do something to just take your mind off of that project, because when you come back to it, you will definitely come back with a new perspective. If you've got to this point in the video and you think, Johnny, you've missed something out that's really, really important, and of course, hit the like button because, you'd be crazy not to. The bonus one is super, 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 super important. And I believe if you don't do this, focusing and getting over creative blocks is going to be really, really hard. And that's simply removing distractions. It's so easy to get distracted in our lives. We have so much stimulus all around us. We have, TVs, we have games, we have our phones. These things here are the worst thing for your creativity because they suck you in, and you start looking, you start scrolling through Instagram, and you're literally like sucked into the phone, and you just kind of forget what's going on around you. Time passes like super, super quick, and you end up not achieving what you want. So when you are working on a project, when you're working on an idea and you're getting that creative block, make sure that you don't have any distractions when you are actually working on it. If you're getting distracted and you feel like you're not putting the time and attention into your task, step away and have a break, because at that point you've lost your attention. There's no point forcing it. Personally, what I love to do is have like meditation music or binaural beats, concentration music on in the background when I'm working. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something about having calm music that doesn't really have a beat. There's nothing to attend to in terms of pay attention to. There's no drums, there's no anything like that. It's just background music. And I find that really useful when I'm trying to work on a task. So when you're working on your project, one of the big things you don't want to do is have this available to you straight away. What I would really recommend doing is, rather than have it on your desk, even if it's turned over the other way, put it in a different room, turn it off, or just put it the other side of the room. So if you do want to check your phone, you have to actually go over and get it rather than pick it up very, very quickly. And as soon as you pick it up, it takes your attention away from what you're doing. It's super easy to get distracted by your phone, so try to remove it from your environment. So to recap those, the first thing you want to do is make sure you get enough sleep. Second is get enough exercise. Third is coming up with quantity of ideas to get the quality. Number 4 is taking breaks and making sure that you actually take them. Number 5 is moving on to something else. And as a little bonus, just remove all distractions from your workspace. If you do have any tips about how you overcome a creative block, please, please, please let me know down in the comments, because not only will it help me, I'm sure it will help many other people that go ahead and actually read the comments, which is probably no one really, let's be realistic. I really hope you have enjoyed this video, so make sure you are subscribed with your notifications turned on, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye-bye.